So what is this zero trust exactly? Is it a strategy? Is it tactics? Is it microsegmentation?
Marketing.
Some people say it's marketing indeed. Well, let's find out today. My name is Lieuwe Koning, and here from the Security Operations Center floor at Ontoit, we bring you Threat Talks, the deep dive. And the subject of today is, this is zero trust. Let's get on to it.
Welcome to Threat Talks. Let's delve deep into the dynamic world of cybersecurity.
Let me start by introducing our guest of today. It's Rob Maas, Field CTO of Ontoit, and his job is to make sure breaches don't happen. And Rob and I were talking about a couple of episodes we wish to make about zero trust. And we're actually going to talk about the 5 steps of zero trust. But before we do this, in the upcoming weeks, let's first have a brief session about what zero trust actually is, to put it all in perspective. Rob, welcome. The 5 steps of zero trust. What are they?
Step 1 is defining the protect services. Step 2 is map the transaction flows. Step 3 is architecture a zero trust environment. Step 4 is create your zero trust policy. And step 5 is monitor and maintain.
And it's just the 5 steps you need to take and then you're done.
Yeah, if you implement that process within your business, you're ready to embed zero trust and also make it a natural process within the organization.
Repeatedly then, yeah.
Repeatedly, indeed, yeah.
All right, so let's start at the really beginning. What is this zero trust thing? I mean, the reason we do this is we have done so many threat talks, and every time it says, yeah, how would you solve this? Yeah, well, within zero trust, it's such and such and so. So apparently there's a lot to unwrap there, and we did an episode with the creator of zero trust, actually, special, right? Half a year ago or so, with John Kinderwaak. But let's see how we do this in practice.
Yeah, exactly. This is the idea here is that we learn you how to bring this into your operational environment, because it's nice to talk about zero trust, but you should implement it. But first, indeed, what is zero trust? If you look at zero trust, is most of all nowadays a marketing term, but it holds really some good ideas about what to do with cybersecurity, how to create a secure environment, and it does that. It's really a kind of a strategy, a way of thinking, a way of implementing your security. It is not a product. It's not something you can simply buy. It's just a way of looking at security. That's all it is, and comes with some good ideas that we're going to discuss in this episode.
Yeah, since zero trust is everywhere and it's indeed used for marketing a lot. It's a bit. Yeah, the term means different things to different people. Huh? I hear people say, yeah, zero trust just means I need to do better everywhere.
Yeah, or zero trust is identity.
I would say that's a bit of a fallacy. Huh? Yeah. I mean, there's a role for identity.
You need identity. So zero trust consumes identity, I think is a good saying. But
zero trust is just hygienics.
Yeah, I think it's more than that. But if you do it well and is that repeated process, then it's hygienic.
It's certainly a result. Hygienics is certainly a result of it.
Correct.
Yeah. So there's many ways to talk about zero trust, but in the next couple of episodes, we are going to talk about how we implement it, for what it means to us, and how we apply it, how we put it into practice. Yeah. Okay. Is it hard?
No, every beginning of something new is hard. You need to learn the ideas behind it and you need to put some effort in it. But the idea, I think, is it's more or less logical thinking. And once you get the hang of it, then it's quite easy to do. But still, it takes time. I sometimes compare it with going to the gym. If your goal is to lose weight, you know what to do, but still it's quite hard to do it and to get started.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's so fairly simple.
It is. It's very.
But is that to you or for the average?
No, I think
IT professional.
I think especially for IT professionals. But the whole idea about zero trust that we come to is you all involve the business. You make business more responsible for security or what they expect of security, and you also need to bring the idea of zero trust to them. So that takes a bit of time and to educate them, to explain what it is, what it brings. But it's not hard, no.
Okay, nice. So there's 4 principles in zero trust.
Yeah. It's I have to peek a bit here. Define your business outcomes. So it's really business focus. So what we here try to do is to not make security an IT product. Quite often the people think that IT is responsible for security, but it should really the business. We try, in the end, by implementing security, we try to let it run the business smoothly, without interruptions, without any breaches, etc. So that's why it's really important to involve the business as well.
Yeah, it's the business process and the business data that we're securing, and not so much the IT guys or an IP address.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. And the other one is design from the inside out. I think this is one that's really sometimes hard for people that are used to do security nowadays in the traditional way. It means really that we are going to focus on what we want to protect, and we're not going to focus on where the attackers reside or where they come from. So instead of looking at the internet and see that as a bad thing, we're looking at what do we want to protect and what's needed to bring that protection to it.
Mm-hmm.
So
is that easier? Or why?
Yeah, it makes it much more digestible. So we know, okay, we need to focus on this small compartment, which we call a protect surface. Once we have defined that, it's really easy to come up with the controls needed for that. And it also makes that we spend the money and the time where it's needed. Because if we know that protect surface is really important, then we should spend more time and money there than, for example, on the gas network.
Yeah, we'll probably next time when we talk about step 1, discuss more about that, where we talk about prioritization, right?
Yeah, correct. And it comes all back.
Yeah. Because then you discover that, great, I finally know now how to, where to put my first dollar and where to put my second dollar in the right order.
Yeah, correct.
All right.
The third one, we need to determine who and what needs access. So also here...
So identity after all then. They were right.
Yeah, if you want to do this, if you want to implement this, you need identity. So Zero Trust consumes identity, I think is a really good phrase. But you are not there with solely identity. Some papers and some products and some vendors will say it's all about identity. And if you're a SaaS provider, you can say that because you take into account all the rest. But for most organizations that are hybrid, not solely SaaS, you also need to think about segmentation, access, all the other controls, endpoint protection that comes into play when you are going to improve your security. And then identity is one of the things, because otherwise you cannot create policies around which user is allowed to access it, or which device, or which user and device. You can make very flexible policies.
Would you say that identity is too much in the minds of people when they think of Zero Trust, in general terms?
Yeah, I think nowadays a lot of people think about, okay, it's about eliminating, we remove all everything we're going to verify if it is really trusted, but therefore we need identity, and that's why people, I think, quite often see, okay, if I have my identity in order, then I have Zero Trust, but it's much broader than the only identity.
Yeah, cybersecurity is in a way a vendor-educated market, as we say.
Yeah, unfortunately it is.
Yeah, and that's not always correct. So on this item,
every vendor will approach for its own for its own product.
Yeah. So we're not saying identity is not necessary or not useful. We certainly consume it, but I always say the default deny rule does not have identity on it, but it's really effective in blocking use.
That's a good one. And the last one is inspect and log all traffic. So if you're going to do Zero Trust, that means you will get a lot of logging. Because you will place the controls, the security controls where it's most needed. It will give you a lot of logging, so it will tell you what's going on in the environment, but also will show you where you can maybe improve your security.
So those are the 4 principles. There's also, you mentioned a little bit about the perspective that it changes, huh?
Yeah, so the what we call in Zero Trust is protect surfaces. It's all about what we really want to protect, instead of focusing on the attack surface. And you even see nowadays a lot of people focusing, and products as well, focusing on the attack surface. How do we see our complete attack surface, what's vulnerable, what's not, etc. There is, I think, a place for it, but I think you should start with focusing on what you want to protect and make small...
It's much more stable, huh? What you want to protect is...
It's much easier, stable.
Easier to understand than the attacker.
Yeah, and it's really also quite easy to digest, because we're going to think about smaller compartments that need protection instead of a big attack surface that's only growing, more or less never ending.
Yeah. Hey, aren't traditional tools enough?
That's a good thing. So Zero Trust is not about products. So we have firewalls, endpoint protection software, all kinds of tools to protect our environment.
Implement all the controls that I can buy, or the one that I can.
Yeah, but if you don't do it in a proper manner, which I would say nowadays, and the traditional setup with LAN and DMZ is not the proper manner, then it's not really effective. We can buy a new firewall, but we're not improving our security. We should really think about how we place these things in our infrastructure, where they're most needed, and then put good policies on them for each and every protect service that we want to protect. And we come to that when we go into the 5 steps in more detail. But you can reuse your products that you already have to start working on a good zero trust environment.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that the products itself are, you need them, but it really matters how you apply them, what kind of policy you put in there, where you put them, how you architect your environment.
Exactly, yeah.
Is it all networking? Because you say a lot about being in control of...
No, it's not all networking, but one of the most important security measures or even mitigations, if you like the MITRE framework, is segment your network. And so one of the first things you always do when you create a protect service, so you define this is what I want to protect, is make sure there's a micro perimeter around it, which is more or less your network segment in most cases. And that has a few benefits. So one is that you can really control what's coming in and going out. But also if things go sideways, so you get attacked, that you can really control the blast radius. So how far can the attacker get?
Yeah. So it's kind of a coincidence, since we are using networks that and all traffic is going through this, that there is indeed a focal point in a way on networking.
Yeah,
and that's not the idea behind zero trust, but it's the
one of the mitigations. And if you really look close to the early papers, it was more about network security, because then we also had this segmentation gateway, which was about segmenting your network. But nowadays,
next generation firewall before it existed. Huh?
More or less, it was almost a one-on-one. And also, if you think about cloud, because that's often I heard then, cloud is still network. You need a way to get to your cloud, and especially if it is infrastructure or platform as a service, you have your own environment there. You need a way to get there, and also you need to think about segments there.
Yeah. There's many people who say, firewall is dead. I mean, it's the new perimeter is identity, and firewalls are ineffective, so we shouldn't focus on that.
Yeah, I think remote code exploitation without authentication proof that is not the case.
Okay, well, fair. Yep. Hey, 5 steps. That's the so let's dive too deep into those, because that's what we're going to do in a subsequent deep dives. Huh?
Yep.
Shall we briefly go over them? The first is define the protect service. What are we going to do in that episode?
Yeah, that's where we're going to define what actually needs protection. So we're going to look at the business, what's important for the business, and what really needs protection, and where do we start?
Okay. And then step 2 is map the transaction flows. Yep. What is a transaction flow?
Yeah, so what you have is...
It makes me think of transferring money to someone, a transaction.
Yeah, you have in IT, and especially nowadays, a lot of systems that communicate with each other. What we're doing here is we look at the protect service that we defined and define which protect services are allowed to communicate with each other. So if we have a point of sale system, for example, that probably needs to communicate with the stock, how many items you have in stock, and retract them.
Inventory system.
Yeah. Inventory system, that is the word I was looking for, yeah. And we map them basically, so that's the transaction flow.
Yeah, so just allow what's needed. That reminds me of this big target attack in 2013 or so, where the attackers got in a very insignificant maintenance planning server, then went to the database, from the database to the point of sale system,
and
the way back, right?
And then all the credit
cards. There would never be a transaction flow mapped that would cater for those flows of data.
Yeah, especially the last step. Why should credit card information go outside?
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah. Okay, so that was 2. So by then we understand what we need to protect and who talks to whom, right?
Correct.
And then in 3 we go to architecting the network.
Yeah, so what I often say, this is the bridge between defining what you want and then going to an operational implementation. So the first 2 steps you have involved, of course, the CISO, but also the business owners of those protect services. And now we know, okay, this is the protect service that we want to protect. Here we define what controls we want to put in place, but then we also need someone who's going to translate that, mainly the architects, and this is what it means to our operational environment. This is what it means to our firewalls, to our identity providers, etc.
Are you talking about technical architects of a solution, technical maintainers of the firewall, or is this the business architects, or
it's more the infrastructure architects that needs to do the translation between what the business requires and how it's going to look in the operational, in the infrastructure, on what it means to the firewalls. That will come up with a plan, and then it's up to the engineers to execute that plan. Yeah.
So just to think of what a practical thing would be, what we would see in step 3, is it buy this firewall or put this firewall, move it there, or create these VLANs?
Or very simple. Let's say we are in an environment where everything is really traditional. We have point of sale systems and the inventory system just sitting next to each other without any perimeter in between. It could mean here that what the first measure that we want to take is put a microperimeter around these two protect surfaces by creating a VLAN, for example, and a subnet where we put those systems in and then route them over the firewall. That's a very common solution for that.
And if my company is in cloud, so what would then in step 3 be a typical thing that you would architect here?
Yeah, you can even have the same option because networking in infrastructure as a service is not much different than doing it in a data center. It's only software defined instead of physical.
And less known.
And less known, unfortunately, because the cloud provider says, "Oh, if you put it here, it's all good.
It's easy.
It's easy,
But it's still there.
It's still there, but you have multiple options. So you can also go to separate environments to make it even more secure. So no human mistakes in the firewall can occur. You have multiple options, especially in cloud and software-driven worlds.
So it plays out in different ways in different kinds of environments, but the principle and the step number 3 is the same everywhere.
Yeah, and this is why we need architects who can understand these different environments and can say, okay, this is what we need
then
to
we
do.
have all that in place, and then the step 4.
Yeah, so it's nice we have now a firewall in place and a microperimeter, but now we need to decide who and what gets access. So we are going to define a policy.
Didn't we just do this in step 2, transaction flows?
No, that's more on a high level. That's where we define which protectors are allowed to communicate with each other. So we know there's communication between the point of sale systems and the inventory system, but now we need to define, is it all equipment of the point of sale systems? What kind of application does it run? Is it only between 8 and 5, for example, or does it need to be 24 hours? We can have a very fine-grained policies, and we do that often with the Kipling method.
So the further we get into the steps, the more technical it gets. So in step 2, it's still business-like, what is the transaction flows, and in step 4, we're saying, hey, this protocol from that IP to this host name.
Yeah, first you start with more with the business owners, what do you need? And then it needs to be translated, of course, in the end to IPs and ports and applications, a more technical policy. Yeah.
Okay, Kipling method, you mentioned.
Oh yeah, so the Kipling method is the 5 W's, 1 H, sometimes referred to the who, what, when, where, I forgot one. Why, when, where, why. Sorry. And the how, at least. We'll dive deep into those. But that makes...
John came up with this poem. That should make it easy from Mr. Kipling, right?
Yeah. We'll tell that in the deep dive on step 4.
Exactly. Okay, and then 5, monitor and maintain.
Yeah, this is the part that's often overlooked. So you implement everything, but then since you have now fine-grained segments, these protect serves, all your controls will create a lot of information about what's going on in your network, who's going to access your point of sale system or your inventory system, and it will generate a lot of logs and events. And you need to take a look at them in case to see if you can improve things, or maybe things are happening that need attention because maybe your inventory is trying to upload all this data to some cloud service that might need attention. Why is that happening?
Continuously look, adjust, and all that. This is typically where a security operations center comes in, MDR solutions, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Something that these guys are very familiar with. Yeah. Okay, clear. That's the 5 steps. A lot to unwrap in upcoming episodes then. Mm-hmm. If we zoom out a little bit, so what is it difficult to do so? What's the hardest part? Because you have done a ton of implementations on Zero Trust in the real world, right? What is hard? Is it technically hard?
There's only one thing that's, I would say, hard, and also maybe only one thing why Zero Trust implementation fail is not getting the business aligned. So having the different departments, like I said, we really are going to do this from a business perspective. That means we should also have a buy-in from all levels of the business. So the business owners, but also C-level, managerial level, tactical level, and the operational people. Because if you only do this from, let's say, top down, and you say, okay, we're going to implement Zero Trust, then the operational team will say, what do they know about security? And if you do it the other way around, then every change that you want to make that costs either time or money will get stopped because they don't understand why you're making that change. So you really have to make sure that everyone has the same idea about Zero Trust, pursuing the same goal, and then it's not hard.
Yeah. Okay.
But getting everyone aligned is the challenge.
Yes, that's a starting point. Once you've done it, it's not like it costs like a lot of time. It's just everybody needs to be on the same page.
Yeah, and then of course
not a lot of effort, but it's hard to.
Yeah, you need to get started, like we refer to as the gym. You need to get started, but once you get going, it gets easier over time. Yep.
Clear. Thank you.
Okay.
Looking forward to those 5 episodes at least.
Me as well.
Yeah. Well, listeners, thank you very much for tuning in. like we said, there's coming up a couple of episodes about this subject, so be sure to look at those. If you want to help us, please like this video or podcast. It helps us spread the word. If you press the subscribe button, you will not miss those 5 episodes. Of course, we do highly recommend that. And here from the Security Operations Center Florida at Ontoit, I thank you very much for tuning in and hope to see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Threat Talks, a podcast by Ontoit Cybersecurity and AMS-IX. Did you like what you heard? Do you want to learn more? Follow Threat Talks to stay up to date on the topic of cybersecurity.